Hi guys, so today I've got another little cooking video for you. This time it's going to be pasta sauce. This is something that I've learnt from my nonna. So my dad's side is Italian. So this is a little bit of an Italian background thing to show you. And I'll just run you through the ingredients before we start cooking and going step by step. So firstly, just get out a large pot and a wooden spoon. And then I normally just grab all my ingredients and keep them here. So for this pasta sauce, you're going to need a few ingredients. So we've got some olive oil, salt and pepper, tomato sauce, tomato paste, garlic, onion. I've just got some extra tomato sauce in there that I just need to use. Basil, Parmesan cheese, a little bit of sugar, a pork sausage, and some beef mince, about 500 grams. Now, unfortunately, with my meat, I do just have the pork sausage, which my nonna does use, and she normally just cuts it in half, but I'm going to do a full sausage because I couldn't get the little pork strips that she normally uses. Normally you'd use that to start with just to get the flavour out of the meat before you actually added your tomato sauce. That actually just reminded me, I've got some pork bones here, and that is just what I've been using because even last time I went I couldn't get the pork strips that she had, unfortunately, but these just don't have too much meat, but again it's got a little bit on there, and again just to sit and simmer into the sauce. So I'm just going to add one of these as well into the pot. So firstly I'll start with my olive oil, and you want to put just a decent amount in the bottom there, about that. Then a large teaspoon of garlic. You can chop garlic if you like, I just like to use minced garlic. Next, chop your onion in half. Again, I'm just going to use my vegetable chopper, but you just cut your onion how you like, but just make sure it's finely diced. So my onion's going to be a little thicker. They actually don't look like strips, they're actually diced, but they're a bit of a thicker dice because my final one did break, so we're just going to make do today. So my onion is done here, and it's on a low medium heat, and we're just going to add it in here. So once this is hot, you're just going to let it simmer for a little bit till it just, not browns, but just softens a little bit the onion. And just keep in mind that I do wash all my onions and things like the basil as well before I put it in this video, so don't worry about that. So I've just stirred through the garlic a bit, and as you can see, it's just starting to bring the heat into the pot and starting to simmer a bit, so that is a good start. Next step, while that just started to boil there, I'm going to add my pork bone and my pork sausage. Let these just cook for probably around 3 minutes. Then I'm going to add my minced meat and then let that brown a little bit before I add the rest of the sauce. If you don't use meat, you will generally find that the flavour is not all there. This particular pasta sauce that Nonna has taught me is just full of flavour, very tasty. It's not just a very plain Napolitana sauce. So yeah, definitely give it a go if you want to make a homemade sauce for sure. Now just waiting for the mince beef to start to get its colour. As you can see, in some spots it already is. Then once that has browned, we're going to add our tomato sauce. While browning your mince, I'm going to add just 1 cup of water in there. Just helps to also prevent the onion or garlic from burning on the bottom, and it will just boil and then go into the sauce after we've done a further step of adding the tomato sauce and the tomato paste. So for this step, after I've added the water, obviously because we want to brown the meat as quick as we can, I just turn it up just for that part before I turn it back down to a low heat. I'm really struggling to open these bottles. 1 done and 2 done. Who said girls can't do what men can? As you see, we've brought it to the boil, so I'm going to turn this down now and then add my sauce. So I've just added 2 of these 700 gram pasta sauces into the pot. Now a little tip, I'm going to add some water, wash it around in the bottles and pour them in there. That way you are not wasting any of this. Another little tip that Nonna gave me. So I've just given it a stir. Again, that's going to simmer, that's going to thicken up towards the end of the sauce. For now, I'm going to add my organic tomato paste. And it is only one of those organic tomato paste. Now, however, I know I said organic, that's not for any particular reason. That is just the specific tomato paste that my nonna uses. Another little thing, speaking of tomatoes, is that people probably say, oh, don't you crush the tomatoes, peel the tomatoes yourself from your homegrown garden? Well, Nonna passed away a few years ago, and He used to have a massive veggie garden in the back, but unfortunately Nonna couldn't take over that and run it, and Nonna's brother-in-law actually is not very well at the moment himself, so he doesn't also have his veggie garden either. And they used to do all the crushing in that years ago when we were younger, but for the moment we're just making do with still making it homemade, but just not the crushing tomatoes part. As you can see, the sauce is slowly starting to bubble, so from this step we're going to add our basil, a little bit of sugar, and then some seasoning. By the way, I've got a couple of other cooking videos on my channel. I've got one from my mum's side who is English, so I baked some scones, and I just did some chocolate spiders as well. Some really quick, easy, sweet things to make at home in this isolation period, or if you're someone who generally just likes to do quick and easy things, you can go have a look at that. Thanks guys. So you want a bunch of basil. My Nonna, normally a little tip that she does is ties it with some string and pops it in there so she can pull it out after the sauce is made and finished. However, I don't have string, so I just literally leave it in the middle. It'll eventually seep into the middle of the sauce. Again, it gives it some really nice flavor, and I don't actually mind basil, so if you don't mind basil leaves, you can just have it floating around in your sauce, that's fine. Then we're gonna add just 2 teaspoons of sugar. Just helps to give it a little bit of sweetness and not that just bland tomato taste. Next, I'm going to add the salt and pepper. Now, keep in mind, I'm just going to go up here for a moment. Salt and pepper you're going to use throughout the sauce because, again, this is where you get your flavour from as well. And then you just test it throughout the sauce and until you get to the flavour that you are happy with, you can put them away. So I would definitely add more salt than pepper for sure. Again, salt goes really well with tomatoes, and in the Italian side of the family, salt on tomatoes is always a go. So you're just going to do that, and then a little bit of pepper. Sometimes at the end, like when we do have our bowl of pasta ready, we can add some ground chili if you like for a little bit more heat, but not everyone is a heat person. Also, just depending on how much sauce you want to freeze in that, just double your ingredients. Otherwise it's just, you're going to taste really tomatoey and there's going to be no flavor. So always double your ingredients. Normally with this big pot here, I can freeze about 6 containers worth. Next, just to finish off the sauce for the moment, we're going to use just a bit of Parmesan on the top to sprinkle around. You can also use a bit of mozzarella if you like. I normally toss up between the two. Keeping it more of Nonna's way, she would use Parmesan more so than mozzarella in her sauce. So there is my cheese, and there's going to be one last little thing that I'm going to share with you for the sauce that every Italian does not mind when cooking. And that is just a little touch of red wine. Now, you don't have to add red wine if you don't want to, that's completely fine, but we just do that again for a little bit more flavour. So I'm just going to give the sauce one last little stir before we simmer it down. So now I'm going to put the lid on, and we are just going to let that one simmer for 2 hours, and then I'll show you when it's all done. So while that's simmering, just going to have a little bit of a chat. So I just literally leave my salt, pepper and Parmesan cheese there, and I just have a little... Now, if you are just wanting to make sauce just for 2 people for just a night, obviously you're going to really mellow down on your ingredients. But obviously for this one, I said I make about 6 containers. So I actually just added a bit more garlic because I should have added another large teaspoon for the amount that I'm making. Just double everything. So for example, I just wanted to specifically talk about the meat. So I've got a pork bone in there. I've got a full pork sausage, and then 500 grams of the beef mince. So you want to really use that if you're making a load to freeze. Otherwise, you're probably going to use, for 2 people, just half a 500 gram of mince, half of a pork sausage, and then if you can find the pork strips, just add about 1 of those. That is fine for your flavouring. But unfortunately, I couldn't get those, so we just had to make do. But yep, it is coming along. I'm just going to open this quickly. There we go. And also, speaking of the meat, once the sauce is done, you can just pull the meat out of your sauce and it will make just a little side plate of meat for you to eat, so it definitely doesn't go to waste. So I'm not actually making pasta tonight, so I can't show you the afterwards of it all presented. However, it is just pasta and it is just sauce. So obviously you know what pasta and sauce look like. But yeah, I'll just show you how I portion it all into the containers, and then I'll finish the video off with showing you the sauce when it is complete. And one other thing before I shut up and just wait for the sauce to finish and come back in 2 hours time is just please make sure you have a lid on it, because normally with me when I cook I don't always use a lid, but if you do not use a lid when cooking this sauce, your kitchen is just going to look like an explosion of tomatoes. And throughout the first hour and then before you head on to the second hour, you want to just make sure that you are stirring your sauce not too often, but maybe like every 20 minutes. Just give it a nice stir, because you don't want anything to stick to the base of the pan and just go really thickish and gluggish. And again, you may need to add some water just to give it a bit more moisture if needs be. And again, you're also going to be adding a bit more salt and pepper or whatever ingredient you think you need a little bit more of. So my sauce is finished, and I'm just going to put them into containers and portion them out just for 2 people, because it is only me and my partner. So I just put these in the freezer, and then the back one I'm going to use for the meat. So I've just popped the meat into this container. Just keep in mind, if you are using a pork bone, it does fall apart, so there may be leftover bones in. So here is my pasta sauce, and I just put enough for 2 people, and me and my partner do like our pastas a little bit more saucy than others may. Some people don't like much sauce at all, but that is done. I'll let it cool down and into the freezer. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.